o'clock. It is now time to open up the annual town meeting for the town of Upton 2017. Madam Town Clerk, is the warrant legal?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the warrant's been posted according to Mass General Law and the bylaws for the town of Upton.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mr. Bob Fleming to step forward, please.
Yes, if everyone would please stand. I'd like to ask a moment of silence for all those citizens of Upton we've lost in the last year. And if you could please turn to our flag, we'll pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Please be seated. So let me just take a few minutes and go through some of the basic ground rules of the annual town meeting. Okay, so we have a list of visitors, and after I read those off, I'm going to want somebody to make a motion to accept those visitors. Jay Byer, Mendon Upton Regional School District Business Manager; Robert Reed, Interim Town Manager; Paul Marchand; Lauren Goldberg, Town Council; Andrew St. George, Recreation Director; Matthew Baxter, Library Director; Vincent Roy, DPW Director; Michelle Valancourt, guest; Michelle Sanford, Town Crier; Janice Nowicki, COA Director; Ken Costa, Accountant; David Vieira. Troop 132, we have a Boy Scout here, that's great, so be on your best behavior, folks, always, thank you. Jessica Mead, Matthew Mead, residents; Joseph Maruschek, Superintendent; and Derek Brindisi, guest. Is there a motion to accept those visitors? Second. Moved and seconded to accept those visitors. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. I'd like to thank all the tellers, clerks, Cablevision, Police Department, Nipmuc Regional for setting up for tonight. And I would like to ask now if everybody can turn off your cell phones. I do have a cell phone now. Those of you who don't think I've gotten into the 21st century, I do have one. And I have it turned off. So please do that now, so that as the meeting's going on, we will not have any interruptions. If you do need to use your phone in all seriousness, just please step out to the hallway. If you use it out there, that's fine. But in here in the hallway, you cannot use your phone because we need to allow people to work through the meeting. So, all right, last question. First-time attendees to town meetings. Anybody first-time attendee? If you could please stand up, give you a hand. All right. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you again in the future. Great. So, general format of the meeting. We have a warrant. It's been posted. It was posted for 7 days in front of the town hall, library, up in the post office, and it's on the Upton website. It contains a list of the articles to be discussed tonight, and those will show up on the screen as the meeting moves through. I'll mention the article number that we are going to be on, and then after that, I'll ask a resident to come forward and to make a motion that's been derived from that article. I'll then ask for a second. After that, I'll ask for Finance Committee recommendation on the motion if it is financial in nature. If it's a capital budget issue, I'll ask for capital budget recommendation. If it deals with the CPC money, I will ask for their motion, their acceptance as well. Once the mover has made a motion, they are then on the floor, and it's up for them if they wanted to discuss the motion, they can, or I will just open it up for discussion. After discussion, if we have any, many motions don't have any discussion at all, which is fine, but some have quite a bit of discussion. It really depends what it is. After that's all been done, we will then vote on the motion that's on the floor. Either we vote in favor of it or we vote against it. Now, any motions or amendments that we have to be in writing and handed up to me so that we can keep a record of what those are. If you do wish to speak, let me talk about those details. Just raise your hand, say, Mr. Moderator, come up to the microphone. The first time you speak, please state your name and address. Okay, so we have that for the record. After you've done that once, you do not have to keep on saying your name and address. But please do it the first time. Then after that, make your statement to the motion that's on the floor. What's really important is that when you do make a statement, you really need to think about what it is that you want to ask, obviously. You really either have a question or you have a statement to make, but it has to be about what the motion is on the floor. It can't be about other stuff that may be on your mind at that point in time. So you have to keep that in mind. You really have to be focused on what it is that's going on at that point in time. And also remember, no personality statements are allowed to be made on the floor. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say we have an especially contentious motion that's on the floor. And Joe Schmo gets up and says something about it. And then Jane Doe decides to come up and say, Joe, I really think what you had to say, you can't say that. If you disagree with what Joe Schmo had to say, you can say that I disagree with the previous speaker with respect to this, this, and that. Or you can just state what you have to state, not even saying that you disagree, and people can listen to what you have to say and they'll realize, gee, Jane disagreed with what Joe said. Okay, that's fine. And that's how you keep it civil, and that's how you keep the personalities out of it. Okay, that being said, you want to make your motions through the moderator, and that way it also kind of lessens the, how shall I say, tension that may exist sometimes on especially emotional type motions, which do happen once in a while. That being said, only one person can speak at a time, and that's why we only have one microphone here. So if you know you're going to speak, say, you know what, there's plenty of room down here near the microphone, so you might want to come here, sit near the microphone if you know that you'll be speaking tonight. Okay? Let's see. Control of the meeting. So, I've said this every year, and only once or twice we've gotten close to having some issues with folks, but it does happen once in a while, I must admit. But not nearly as often as other moderators. I could tell stories that other moderators tell you, let me say. So, if for some reason someone's speaking and they're out of line, I'll say, sir or madam, please stop speaking and step back from the microphone. If you don't do that, I will then ask for the microphone to be cut off if that's possible to do. If not, I will then insist you step back from the microphone. After you do that, I'll just inform you of what the infraction was that you made, if you haven't figured it out yourself. I will then ask you if you feel as if you can continue. If you feel you can, I will allow you to do that. After you come back to the microphone, if for some reason it just keeps happening and you're still out of line, I will then ask you to take your seat. If you don't take your seat, I'll ask you to leave the meeting. If you don't leave the meeting, I will ask the officer in the back to escort you out of the meeting. We've never gotten that close, and I hope not to tonight. I don't think we will, because by and large, the citizens of Upton are a very civil group of people. You're passionate about things, and that's great, but you talk about it in a civil manner, and that's how it's supposed to happen. So thank you for being that way. It makes my job easier. Let's see. Before we get started, Finance Committee, was there anything in particular you wanted to say about anything before we got into the town meeting, or did you want to wait till we get to the sections where we deal with the budget?
We can wait, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Flaherty. Okay, so having said that, the next order of business is to ask the Board of Selectmen if they have a motion for the consent calendar.
Okay, if you could put a slide up. We just want to clarify this. As you see here, this shows favorable, unfavorable. If we vote everything tonight, we have a favorable of $138,000 we haven't spent. This item is a projected capital. This does not affect tonight's meeting at all. If we took all the capital requests and put them on the October warrant for the town meeting in October, this would be the number, and we're not saying that's going to happen by any stretch. So right now, we're really focused on this number here as the surplus after we expend everything from tonight. So I just wanted to clarify that. So if we voted this in the fall, that number would change also because our free cash is certified in September, and the state is the one that determines, they take all our revenues and all our expenses, and they tell us what our, call it our bank account still has in it by September it's certified. So, but right now, we're dealing with this number as a surplus if we voted for everything tonight. The other numbers are not impacted. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, you ready for the motion?
I am ready for the motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote by unanimous consent that the following articles that have not been requested hold those consent calendars, articles being, and I'll read them slowly, Articles 8, 10, 12, and 29. Again, 8, 10, 12, and 29. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. So briefly, what does a consent calendar mean? What it means is that these are motions which every year they come up. There's hardly ever, if ever, any discussion on those. We would choose to vote on them unanimously. Now, if for some reason you don't want to do that, then all you have to do is say hold as I read those off. So, what I'll do quickly, turn your book. Article 8 is the workers' compensation plan for the Mass Regional Retirement System. Okay, that's that one. And Article number 10 is let's see, creating the revolving fund for the treasurer collector. Every year we have that. And then after that, Article 12 has to do with reimbursement from the state to work on the roads. And then Article 29 is the Finance Committee Reserve Account. So if there's no holds on any of those, I don't see any holds on those, okay, then I'd like to ask, would the town vote by unanimous consent to accept all those motions as written? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All those motions are passed unanimously. Okay. Next one we're going to go to now is Article 2. So is there a motion for Article 2, please?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to hear the reports of all town officers and appointed committees.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Motion to hear the reports of all town officers and appointed committees. Now, is that to hear them all or to accept them as written? Just want to make sure we got that right. These are to accept them as written, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a minor thing there. So, the motion is to accept all the reports of the town officers and appointed committees as written in the annual report. Is there any question on that? Yes, ma'am?
Lorraine Lee for 18 Nelson Street. My question is about the list of graduates from Nipmuc. The list from the class of 2015 is not included, and the list from 2016 is not included in this annual report. And I think that's a really good point of remembrance for the students that graduate, and good to look up if you are looking for people. So I was wondering if anybody could speak to this.
And just as a point of clarification, this was talked about last year, so the 15 list should have been in the 16 annual report, and that didn't happen. So, and also this year's wasn't either. So is there anyone that could speak to that? Madam Town Clerk?
Mr. Moderator, I reached out to the school administration. I agree with the previous speaker that for historic purposes, we should at least have a list of all the graduates in the annual town report. So today I reached out to the administration and they are supplying me with that list. We will have a minimal amount of reports written for 2015 and 2016 that will include the graduates or even the whole ceremony for those 2 years. Moving forward, it will probably be just a list. So if anybody wants those, we'll have them available in my office. And we'll also make sure the library has a copy of it as well. And lastly, has the keeper of the records. I'll make sure that that is the report that's bounded for future generations.
Thank you very much. Any future discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, so I'm just trying to think here. So do we need to, I'm trying to think if we need to make a motion on that, or if it's just the fact that we know that those.
The motion's been made, it's been seconded, we should have discussion.
Okay, fine. So, that being the case, we know that next year, things will go back to the way they were with respect to the list of graduates. So, all those in favor of accepting the town reports as written in the annual report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now, is there anybody that wants to make a motion regarding Article 3?
Hi, Mr. Moderator, Deb Lazar, 10 Farrar Road. I move to pass over Article 3 and Article 4.
Okay, there's a motion to pass over Articles 3 and 4. Is there a second for that? Second. It's been moved and seconded to pass over Articles 3 and 4. Is there any discussion on that?
I just wanted to explain why.
Sure.
I wanted to make this motion because they both relate to the review of the Town Manager Act. The Board of Selectmen agreed to form a committee for a formal review of the Town Manager Act. At their April 18th meeting, the Board of Selectmen did appoint 9 applicants to the Town Manager Act Review Committee, and their first meeting was held last Wednesday, April 26th. The following people applied and were appointed: Debbie Amarelli, Rich Desjardins, Donna Marie Floyd, Elizabeth Fournier, Al Holman, Dan Lazars, Scott Van Relton, Steve Radkman, and Alan Rosenfield. These are public meetings, and the next Town Manager Review Committee meeting will be Thursday, May 18th at 6:30, and feel welcome to attend. It is the request of the citizens that these 2 petitions be given to this committee as part of their formal review of the Town Manager Act. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the 200+ citizens who signed one or both of these petitions, as they were integral in a part in making this committee happen.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on passing over Articles 3 and 4? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. We have 3 more visitors here. Gregory Manning, resident, Owen O'Brien, resident, and State Representative David Moradian. Thank you, sir, for coming to our meeting. So, is there a motion to accept the visitors? Second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Now we're going to go through the budget. For those of you who've been here before, it's pretty much like we've always done it. If you're new to this, please listen. Okay, so in your booklets here, turn to page 1 of 5. Top of the page, you see all these numbers, all these columns. Okay, that's where you want to be. So once you're there, this is how it's going to work. We're going to have a motion made, but then we'll get into it after that, so I'll explain how we're going to do this. After the motion is made, we're going to go through the budgeting process. What you need to look at is column number 4, which is FinCom recommendation. So as you're looking at these numbers on the budget, you got to say to yourself, is that number okay for me? That's what the Finance Committee is recommending. I'm going to go through all 5 pages. I'm going to go department by department. So if you feel the need to hold a particular number because you have a question about that, as I'm going through that department, you just yell hold, and I'll ask which number you want to have held, and you'll tell me the number on the left, which one you want to hold. That's it. Now, I'm going to go through it fairly quickly because all of you have had access to this since at least Monday, if not even before that, on the website. So now isn't the time to figure out if you want to hold anything. You should have already done that over the last 4 or 5 days. Because if not, we're not going to go through line item by line item, which is what they did many, many years ago. That takes too long. Then when we're done on that, anything that hasn't been held, we'll have one general vote on that. Except that, then we'll go back to the things that were held, and I'll ask you to come to the microphone, state your name and address, and state the reason why you want to hold that number. Now, this is very important. This is not the time to hold something simply because you're not happy with a department on how they're doing something. This isn't the time to do it. You're holding something because you have a question about the particular number in the budget. That's the reason to hold it. No other reason. I want to make that clear to everybody. You've gotten better at that over the years. I just want to remind you to keep doing that. Thank you. Any questions on that process? Okay, good. Great. Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Moderator,
I move that the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of all officers of the town as provided by Chapter 41, Section 108, Mass General Law, as amended, and to raise and appropriate $20,863,304 as necessary to defray expenses of the town departments for the ensuing year, as set forth in the documents entitled Finance Committee Report, Town of Upton, Massachusetts, Fiscal Year 2018 Budget Recommendations, for all those items not requested whole, and as amended, if applicable, by vote of town meeting for those items requested whole.
second.
Moved and seconded. So, we're gonna go through line by, FinCom, would you like to make any comments at this point in time, or are things self-explanatory, sir?
So far, I believe it's self-explanatory, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Okay, let's run through it. Accountant, 2 through 7. Animal control, 9 through 16. Blackstone Valley Regional, 18 through 22. Board of Assessors, 24 through 34. Board of Health, 36 through 42. Board of Selectmen, 44 through 55. Hold, what number? 44. Board of Selectmen wages, number is 248,751. Okay? Bonding town offices, 57 through 60. Cable advisory, 61 through 65. Capital budget, 67 through 69. Cemetery commission, 71 through 75. Code enforcement, 77 through 84. Conservation, 86 through 91. Council on Aging, 93 through 111. Department of Public Works, 113 through 137. DPW Parks Forest Cemetery, 139 through 153. There's a hold on what number? 139 wages. Okay. Elections and town meetings, 155 through 157. Emergency management, 159 through 164. Emergency medical services, 166 through 178. Finance committee, 180 through 183. Fire department, 185 through 200. Interest paid, 203 through 211. Historical commission, 213 through 215. Housing authority, 217 through 219. Library, 220 through 227. Maturing debt, 230 through 240. Mendon Upton Regional, 242 through 249. Miscellaneous, 252 through 258. Moderator, 260 through 264. Municipal buildings, 266 through 267. Now, and the next, some of the numbers are mixed up on the next one. Under nurse health services, 270, then it says 267, 68, 69. You guys see that on the FinCom? Okay, so nurse services, anything held there? No? Okay, thank you. Personnel board, 273 through 280. Planning board, 283 through 293. Police department, 295 through 307. Police department, 308 through 313. Recreation, 315 through 320. Registrar of voters, 323 through 327. Town clerk, 329 through 333. Town council, 335 through 337. Treasurer collector, 339 through 344. Hold, is there a hold there?
Yes.
Which number?
340.
340 salaries, hold. Okay. Trust fund, 347 through 349. Veteran services, 351 through 356. Waste removal, 358 through 363. Okay? So, just to review, there were, I believe there were 3 that were held. Those were Board of Selectmen wages, 44. DPW parks wages, 139. And treasurer collector salaries, 340. Is that correct? Okay, so that's what's held. So at this point, we're going to vote on the lump of everything else. And then we'll look at these three afterwards. So, all those in favor of the budget as written without the ones that were held, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. So, we had a hold on 44 Board of Selectmen wages. Who held that? And could they come to the microphone, please?
Paula Deanna, 163 Mendon Street, also the police department clerk, inquiring on the 20% increase to the executive assistant position, what the job change was.
Okay, question about,
Mr. Moderator,
This
I'll
one?
defer that to the town manager.
okay. Is that working? Or-
Thank you, Council. In summary, this is an example of where a position has taken on additional responsibilities and has been reclassified. This began before I started here, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. The town had hired a classification company, human resource firm, Human Resource Services, and due to the additional responsibilities of this position, particularly in human resources and personnel, we felt, as we occasionally do with other positions, that it should be looked at to see if it should be reclassified. The result of the study by Human Resources was that it should have at least one grade change. Actually, when you look at the weighting, it was very close to having 2 grade changes because of the additional human resources responsibilities. In fact, the study recommended that this be revisited for a additional look at in about 2 years, and if there are any more human resource responsibilities, that the town might consider hiring someone, especially to do this, do these responsibilities. I think, just in my experience, I think there are many responsibilities here that are being handled in the Selectmen's office. They've got to be somewhere, but they're in the Selectmen's office that are frequently in other departments. And sometimes in Selectmen's offices where these responsibilities are there, there is an additional person. So I think this 20% increase recognizes that grade change that was justified and in fairness for the additional responsibilities that this position has taken on. This was also approved by the Personnel Board at their meeting in January.
Any further questions about that, or discussion, sir?
Mike Moran, 102 High Street. If you look up online, that job only pays $46,000 a year when they did their survey. Where did they come up with that kind of money? I read the job description, you look online, it says what the average pay is. You're talking like $15,000 to do it.
Well, I'd be happy to revisit the job description that's online, but as part of this reclassification, the job description did change. That's what really drove the change in the
Because
classification.
at that point,
Wait. You all set? Okay, sir.
at that point, the person who was doing the job is getting like $3,000 less than a patrolman, has more responsibility than anybody.
Okay.
You gotta look at it that way. When you talk about responsibility, who's got more responsibility? The patrolman on the road or the administrative assistant?
I don't disagree with you. I think the patrolman's doing an essential function, but I think there is a weighting system that's used by firms in doing these classification studies. And they look at the responsibilities and the technical requirements, the nature of the material that's being dealt with, and they give it a weighting. And this is a firm that's been doing this for decades. They do this all across the state. They compared this position to other positions in other communities and in the job market, and that's the rating that they gave it. And it's, this wasn't something that was done just internal. This was something that was done with the help of a reputable firm that came in and weighted the position. And again, I think that in fairness and to recognize the responsibilities of the position, the change in the compensation was made, and the grade change was made. I don't know if I mentioned before, but it was very close to being reclassified as a two-grade higher rather than just one.
Thank you.
I understand.
Any further discussion, or?
No, I understand, it was my, when I read it, you read the pay raise of everybody else, the patrolman salary, who's more important? Puts his life on the line every day. Whoever's doing that other job, not putting the life on the line. You look at that laptop.
Thank you. Chief?
Thank you. Mike Bradley, Warren Street, through the moderator, to the town manager. Could you just explain when the next reclassification will be done for all the employees? Because I think there's several job descriptions that need to be updated.
I agree, and the hope now is to have Human Resource Services come back and assist the Personnel Board in some training so that this reclassification can be done on an ongoing basis internally. Sometimes it's necessary in personnel boards that I've dealt with, the classification plan has gone by the wayside. Every 5 or so years, you need to bring in a firm to bring it up to speed. I think that in this instance, we're going to have Human Resources train the personnel board so it can be done on a continuing basis. And I think this would be done for any position. It would, the administrative assistant's position wasn't the only one that was done this year. Another one had a change in classification. And this will continue to be done on an ongoing basis through the personnel board when, as you know, all these positions take on additional responsibilities and that has to be recognized.
Now, all right, to the next speaker. Does this new mic on my tie work? Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Mr. Moderator, Blythe Robinson, 170 North Street. I believe I can help a little bit with part of the issue. The last overall review of the compensation system and job descriptions was done in 2014, and the town has a history of doing those every 5 years. There are situations where, at times, if there's a change in a situation, those are looked at again, and I'm glad that the Personnel Board decided to bring in outside assistance so that it can be kept above board by someone who has no interest in the situation to make a decision. I'd also like to remind town meeting that in the past, when there have been changes of department heads, there have been employees who have received additional pay for additional work. It happened in the Council on Aging a couple years ago, and probably 8 to 10 years ago, it happened for 2 employees in Public Works. So this is a fairly standard practice for the town. And with the town manager working just 3 days a week, and I'm sure very hard, he's not there to do things that still have to be done in that office for HR, insurance, posting agendas, posting minutes, and all the work that's selectmen require because they're part-time. So perhaps when there's a new manager again full-time, maybe that's the time to look at it again. But I rise in support of this creation.
Okay, thank you. If there's still more discussion, fine, but I want to make sure we can move along. But Ms. Grant, please. Yeah.
Excellent, Shelley Cook, 43 Mendon Street.
Yep.
With regards to this, I was wondering if this would be something that we revisited, say another permanent town manager does get hired, would this position again be revisited and then reevaluated?
Okay, that's a good question.
Actually, I can't answer that. That would be up to the new town manager. Just if I could add to this.
Please, yeah.
I served on the personnel board for a while and an interim about 2 years. That was when the town brought in the classification system, and a lot of people worked hard to develop this. Basically, this system is, contrary to what some people may think, is totally unbiased in how it goes through. It is vetted by not only a private agency, but it's also vetted by the personnel board. They all have to sign off on it. There were 8 individuals that were reevaluated this year, and the ranges changed. There are others that had significant raises also. And this was, again, vetted through the proper process. If we want to deviate from that process and start singling things out, we have to revisit that whole process and take another look at it. That would be the only proper thing to do.
Thank you. Anything else? That's it?
Mike Parshan, 21 Warren Street. I got two questions. I'd like to know, I hear the word HR, I'd like to know if this position's increase is going to decrease the responsibilities of the next town manager, and can the salary of that position be adjusted to cover this money?
First of all, one of the things the Board of Selectmen, and I can speak from past experience, this town is at the cusp of needing two positions. HR director, part-time probably, and a finance director, part-time probably. Both of those roles roll under the Board of Selectmen right now. Those are two roles that should be, someone else should be managing those, rather than have them fall under the Board of Selectmen's office. So I would think that if a new town manager comes in, one of the things I would support is looking for someone to form an HR function and to be there. We probably couldn't handle a 40-hour week, but somebody, preferably say a retired individual who's willing to work 20 hours a week, would benefit us for an HR position.
Second question was pertaining to the position. Usually in these positions, when it has HR, what training, qualifications, and everything, you know, did this position have training, qualifications, and everything to justify or is it just an increase in responsibility?
I can tell you that the agency that did the evaluation and researched the position based the merit based upon the ability of the individual for what was required. The individual does not affect decisions of HR, but they do process. That's everything from health filings to insurance claims to anything that affects the personnel or an employee of the town. So if somebody's filing for a retirement claim, that's part of it as well. All of those things are done through the Selectman's office, which is an adjunct of what really the Selectman's office is doing now. We would prefer to have somebody else managing that.
Anything else?
Paula Deanna, 163 Redmond Street. I recommend that we hold it till all department clerks, executive assistants, department specialists, all be reclassified. In all fairness, to all the other departments. Our clerks run code enforcement, Board of Health, the police department. We have a lot of responsibilities, and I think it would be fair.
Mr. Moderator, for clarification.
Yes.
Does that mean we hold all 8 that were reevaluated? Because there were 8.
Okay.
You're asking
With a
questions.
20% increase?
There were 8 that were evaluated. It was due process. We're focusing on the 20%, but we're not focusing on the process. There were 8 others. There's another one that got a significant increase too.
No, I'm not recommending we hold it.
Well,
I'm
why,
recommending we let
through the
lie.
chair.
Hold on. One at a time. One at a
Mr.
time.
Moderator, it asked through the moderator,
Yes.
why is it we were isolating 1 of 8?
Okay.
Well,
Deanna?
if you look at the budget, there's a 20% increase on one line item, and all the others are less than 2%. That's drastic.
Is there somebody who can say something to help us work through this? Mr. Flaherty?
Through you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
The previous speaker suggests a different number.
Eventually we have to have a number.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, like we hear this number. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Moderator, the line item here has more than this one salary in it.
Correct,
An appropriation has to be made
correct.
for this line item.
Yep.
And it has to be made tonight. We can't wait till 6 months or 2 months or whatever. It has to be done now.
Correct. So, we need to have a number in there. I mean, I've allowed debate on this. It's an important issue, differing points of view, but we do need to have a number in there. Whether that number should be what's there now or some other number, somebody needs to give me a number. So,
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Flaherty.
I move we rate the town raise and appropriate $248,751 for the purposes of line 44.
The move is seconded to raise and appropriate $248,751. So, we've had some debate on the issue so far. Anyone else have anything to say on it? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries by a majority. Next held item is 139. Wages, parks, DPW parks, forestry, and cemeteries. Number is 150,532. Who held that?
Mike Moran, 102 High Street. On the same thing as the other one, it's a 22.63% increase for a laborer that's pesticide license. It's a big increase for a laborer. I know license involved, but it's a big increase just for the pesticide license.
Okay.
Anybody answer how that scale worked on that?
Okay. Somebody that wants to address that question?
I can answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Roy, Director of Public Works. I wanted to say that this is a contractual obligation based on current collective bargaining agreement. This labor, he was working as a supervisor in the absence of a highway superintendent. He's been with the department for a number of years. What was negotiated and agreed with the last contract agreement was to promote this person to a position that had been held within the department for years. What we did, we shifted money from a line within the budget, working for him differential. And so he's paid full-time at this rate. As I stated, what was agreed on in the last contract negotiations. So that's the reason.
Okay, so thank you.
So basically, you shifted money from one line item to make this work, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, anything else? I need a number. Mr. Flaherty.
Mr. Moderator, I move we town raise and appropriate $150,533 for the purposes of line 139.
Second, moved and seconded, 150,532. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. The last one that was held was 340 salaries, treasurer collector.
My name is Robin Sharkey, Farrow Road, and my question was, it's almost a 4% increase for the treasurer collector's salary, and I'm just wondering how we justify it when it's a 28-hour office availability versus 38 hours for the rest of the town.
Okay. Justification for the salary increase.
It's elected position, Mr. Moderator.
Could you get the microphone?
Just only that it's an elected position, he's sovereign in his own elected authority, so we can't speak to it.
Okay, fair enough.
The line item that was called in question is actually made up of the wages for the clerk and my assistant treasurer collector. Now, those numbers may have been switched over with me, but that's the number that's there. And that increase is in part because we're going to be pulling out the payroll, taking payroll away from the assistant treasurer collector and having it as a separate job. And also I'm adding some extra money to do historical records retention, and which is something that we've been working for the last 2 years. The other item is my wages, but that's not the one that was put on hold. The one that was put on hold are those components.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Flaherty? Yeah, want a number.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town raise and appropriate $58,269 for the purposes of line 320.
Second? Moved and seconded. Any more discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by majority. Okay, we're done with the budget. And we're back to the numbers. So, Article 6, draft 6.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $1,220,778 to operate the Water Enterprise Fund as set forth below for the ensuing fiscal year. For the following sums to be appropriated for the Water Enterprise Fund: wages and salaries $242,286, expenses $340,771, capital outlay $235,000, debt $335,601, extra unforeseen $50,000, budgeted surplus $17,130, total $1,220,778, and that $1,220,778 be raised for such purposes as follows: Department receipts $902,998, retained earnings $150,000, tax levy $167,800, free cash $0.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Minor detail on the warrant, it's $788 versus $778. I know it's only $10, but which is it? Is it the $778, Mr. Flaherty? I don't think it matters that much, but you know, just want to make sure we get it right.
I'm looking at the motion, Mr. Moderator.
I know, me too. It should be an 8. 788, according to the numbers above it, so, okay?
Both say the same thing as what I'm looking at, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. I'm just, what's on the paper is 788, what's on the screen is 778. It's not a big deal, I just want to make sure we got the numbers right, that's all. So, 788, right? That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, sir. Could you?
Discrepancy, the warrant has Article 3 reference and the overhead has Article 5.
Okay, could you come to the microphone, please? Thank you. Right.
Jeff Coverly, 10 Francis Drive.
Yeah.
I would point out the article on the overhead and the article on the warrant are different.
Right, thank you very much, because what happened was they moved the 2 citizens ones in to be 3 and 4, so thank you very much. So it is 5 as on the screen, that's correct, thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 7. Okay. They will take care of the typos. Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Go ahead. Yours.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $912,313 to operate the wastewater enterprise fund as follows for the ensuing fiscal year. That the following sums be appropriated for the wastewater enterprise fund: wages and salaries $219,048, expenses $326,817, capital outlay $82,000, debt $250,596, extra unforeseen $30,000, budgeted surplus $3,852 for a total of $912,313. And that $912,313 be raised for such purposes as follows: Department receipts $677,015, retained earnings $110,000, tax levy $125,298, free cash $0.
Second.
Thank you. All righty. Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now, before we get to Article 9, it's been brought to my attention that Article 8, which we passed by unanimous consent, we need to list the funding sources for that. So, if somebody could make a motion who voted in the affirmative, which was everybody, to reconsider Article 8 simply for the purposes of putting in the funding sources, could somebody make that motion?
Motion. Mr. Moderator, I motion to reconsider Article 8 for purposes of explaining the funding source.
Thank you, Roy. It's been seconded. All those in favor of reconsidering Article 8 to add the numbers in, I'll signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Go ahead, Mr. Fleming.
I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $511,372 in conformity with Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 22(7)(c)(ii), relative to the pension expenses, workers' compensation, military service funds of the Worcester Regional Retirement System for the fiscal year 2018, and for such purposes to raise from the tax levy $465,049,
transfer from the Water Enterprise Fund $23,162, and transfer from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund $23,161.
Second?
Second.
FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Basically, we just wanted you to see where the three sources of the funding was coming from. That's the reason for doing this, okay? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Article 9 is the revolving funds. Normally, this is in the consent calendar, but it's a little bit different this year, so that's why we do have this as a motion.
Rather than read it slowly, Mr. Moderator, I will abbreviate it, and I would defer to town council. Are you in agreement?
Yeah, just read it as written, and then town council will explain why.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we vote as stated, Article 9 in the warrant.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, well, actually now, town council, if you could just explain briefly why there's a change this year.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Lauren Goldberg, KP Law. So the Municipal Modernization Act made a multitude of changes to the general laws. One of them was to the statute that addresses revolving funds. It requires that revolving funds now be established by bylaw, which is why we have a bylaw in the warrant. In addition, DOR issued some guidance suggesting that because of this year and timing issues, that town meeting approve these revolving funds as well by establishing them for FY18. So this article does all of those things.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Mr. Robertson.
John Robinson, Mechanic Street. I would like to add an amendment to section 7.
Okay, which is on page 8. Okay, which is, right now it says procedures and reports, etc. So, Mr. Robertson, what's your amendment?
All right, this amendment is based on the fact that it should be clear on how these funds are reported to the town. The chapter of the general laws gives some latitude, but basically it's a little bit confusing. Some people report it in the town report and others do not. So I think it should be consistent and that all people, all departments report it in the same manner. Because this is outside of the town accountant in general. Each department is its own accountant. So to accomplish this, I would like to add to section 7, each board, department, and commission shall annually report to the town in the annual report the revenue, expenditures, the ending balance, and whether the spending limit has been exceeded for the fiscal year ending June 30th of that year.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second. Now, Mr. Robertson, I assume you're going to add that sentence right after it says this bylaw. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, not to reiterate, but basically, the amendment is dealing with the fact that we need to have consistency with regard to how it is that these funds are reported to the townspeople. That's what the amendment is about. Any discussion on that? Okay. Yeah. Town council, could you just offer an opinion with respect to the legality of this kind of an amendment?
Mr. Moderator, revolving funds can only be expended if money is actually in the fund. So amounts to be expended cannot exceed the amount that's allowed to be expended. In addition, if, for example, a revolving fund were to collect more monies than was previously authorized, the only way that could be expended is if the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee approve an additional or a higher level to expend. So there won't be a situation where monies are exceeded. Also, I just point out that the town accountant keeps track of how much is spent from the revolving funds, and it would only be that the town accountant's data that would be relevant. I don't believe that different boards and committees have their own accounting. that would supersede that of the town accountant.
Okay, I hear exactly what you're saying. I guess the question is, though, it's talking about making sure each department puts into their annual report what happened. So from a legal point of view, would this amendment be okay? That's really what my question is.
Certainly, the town can adopt a bylaw that directs boards and committees as to reporting in the town report.
Okay, because that's really what the question dealt with. I understand exactly what you're saying in terms of the other aspect of it. But, okay, so any other discussion on that? Yes, Mr. Robinson.
I looked in the town report and I did not see anything where the town accountant had listed or informed the citizens of the activity in the revolving accounts. So he may have it, but you would have to go to him and ask each one specifically.
So right now, it's not in the annual report, and you'd like to see it there, basically is what you're saying.
Yes, I think the enabling legislation also says one of the options is to report to the town meeting.
Fine. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Robinson. Richard Robinson, 170 North Street. Mr. Moderator, I believe that the annual report is an annual report. It goes from January through December. The town accountant reports a fiscal report, and they don't coincide necessarily.
Okay, that's a fair question. So the annual report that we just gave out to everybody goes from June to June, right? It does not.
Mr. Moderator? So
Mr. Fleming.
That would be the prior fiscal year, so it wouldn't apply to this fiscal year. So it would qualify. I would ask the person making the motion if he would accept the board's recommendation that we look at this as a bylaw amendment at some future time and bring it back to the town, preferably, say, October, and have a bylaw change that would accomplish what he wants, because right now there's the complexity of the dollar amounts and so forth, and this way we could put something that's got solid language and would make sure our annual report has all those revolving accounts stated in financial reporting in the annual report, which I believe is what the person making the motion asked for, if that's acceptable to him.
How do you feel about that if we look into this and come back to it in October of the year?
Well, I guess my opinion is this: as long as something is done, that would be fine. So if we want to, what would we do, pass over it now?
Well, at this point, you could say that you would like to withdraw the motion.
All right. I am willing to withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you. And one thing I can guarantee everybody here, Mr. Robertson will be here at the fall town meeting, okay? And there will be an article on there dealing with this particular issue. Is that correct?
I think I'd be embarrassed if there wasn't.
Thank you very much. So that'll be taken care of. So if everyone's okay with that, the motion has been withdrawn, and if there's no objection to that, we will do it that way. Great, thanks. Okay. Excellent. 10 was done already. We need to vote on, we need to vote on 9, don't we? We haven't voted on it yet, have we? Thank you very much. So we need to vote on 9. I forgot to do that. So, all those in favor of the motion derived from Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Madam Townsend. Okay. Article 11. Mr. Dario.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate $1,300,000 for the purpose of paying costs associated with the legal fees, engineering, design, project management, construction costs, and materials for replacement of approximately 4,220 feet of old water main along Hartford Ave North, including all incidentals and relative thereto. And as a funding to borrow the sum to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, or in any other enabling authority, and issue bonds or notes therefore, and will such bonds shall be general obligation bonds of the town. It is anticipated that the repayment of the borrowing include interest and principal, shall be made pursuant to the following formulas: 50% to be paid by general taxation, and 50% to be paid by the water system users. And further, that any premium received by the town upon the sales of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of insurance of this such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of the cost approved by this vote in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such cost by life.
Second? Been moved and seconded. Two recommendations I'm going to be looking for. One from the Finance Committee.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the Finance Committee, Capital Budget Committee.
Favorable action.
Favorable action by the Capital Budget Committee. So, is there any question on the motion? As the person's coming forward, keep in mind the payment for this is the 50% general taxation, 50% by the water system users, which is the usual formula we have for these types of capital expenses for the town. That's it.
Like James Hill on Hartford Ave North. I just am wondering how this is going to coincide with the other work that they're speaking of doing on Hartford Ave. I mean, it doesn't make sense at this point, dig it up, replace water mains, and then dig it up again.
Good question. Can anybody address that? Mr. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This project is, we're doing this in preparation for the TIP project. Many of you in town are familiar with the TIP project. $10.5 million project, we're receiving money from the state. This section that for the water main is from 140 all the way up to top of the hill of Lawrence Street, High Street area. It's an old AC water main with a history of water main breaks. We have to replace this. If we don't replace this and we spend all this money, there's a good chance that we'd end up with a water main break and have to dig the road up. So what we're doing is all the infrastructure on the ground to replace anything that's old and needs to be replaced ahead of time. We're scheduled to do this project next year, or fiscal year 2018, and the TIP project will be the following year. So therefore, what we'll do is we'll do a trench patch, so it's not going to be a smooth stuff. We all know that the road up there isn't the greatest anyways. The following year is we're going to reconstruct the road, so the road will be making issues to be done.
So this will be done to fit in with the other project that's being done, essentially.
Correct. Yes, this is...
That's really the question.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Now, this requires a 2/3 majority vote, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 13. Motion from Article 13.
Article 13, I move that the town vote to amend the vote taken under Article 3 of the May 5th, 2016 annual town meeting, appropriating the fiscal year 2017 budget as amended under Article 2 of the November 15th, 2016 special town meeting. To make a supplemental appropriation for town council expense for the remainder of the fiscal year 2017, and as funding therefore, to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the total sum of $20,000.
Second. Moved and seconded.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
FinCom. Mr. Stein, second card, please. Please, the card, please. Free cash, okay, thank you. No problem. Yeah, I'll make sure we say that. Let's see. So where it says transfer from available funds, it should say transferred from available unappropriated funds?
You should say from free cash.
So from free cash as opposed to available funds?
Yes.
That's okay. So minor change, it's going to be from free cash as opposed to available funds. FinCom, that's fine. I assume free cash?
That was our motion, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, great. So, any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Before we move on to the next article, Mr. Battaglia, congratulations on your election to electorate your first. All right. Next one, Article 14.
Mr. Moderator, call to carry 6 Effingham Way.
I move that the town vote to act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2018 Community Preservation Budget, and to appropriate a sum of $15,000 from the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 2018 estimated annual revenues to the Community Preservation Committee Administrative Expense Account for all necessary and proper administrative expenses of the committee for fiscal year 2018.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Bring that forward, please. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 15.
Moderator, Don Spargo, 106 Glenview Street. I move that the town vote to transfer from the Community Preservation Reserve Account, Historic Resources Reserve, 2400035901000, the sum of $6,000 to the Upton Historical Commission for the purpose of purchasing and installing up to 5 signs, identifying Upton's historical district. Such funds will be expended by the Upton Historical Commission.
Second? Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, any discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 16.
Michael Bradley, Warren Street. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,700 to purchase active shooter kits and replacement firearms for the Upton Police Department.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 17.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $121,420 to fund the completion of the engineering and design services, included all incidentals and related expenses related to the town's transportation improvement program.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Capital budget recommendation?
Favorable action.
Thank you. And just as you can see, this number is quite a bit less than the other number. I know there's a reason for that. If somebody could just briefly explain the reason why it's not the full amount right now. It's not like we're saving all sorts of money. There is a reason. So, thank you.
Part of the money of the original 303 was to purchase easements, temporary and construction easements, and there's some additional information that the town is still working on that's required by the Department of Transportation as part of the vote for that money. So this money will allow the Department of Public Works to move forward, do the engineering, get the easements set, and then come back in the fall and get the money to purchase the easements.
Okay, thank you. So the rest of the money will happen in the fall after that. Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Robinson.
Does this work go from essentially West Upton to the Hopkinton line, or is this only the first section of it?
Who wants to address it? Mr. Lloyd? Yep.
This is the entire section from 140 all the way to the Hopkinton.
So from 140 all the way to the Hopkinton line?
Correct, yes.
Originally, I understood that the town had sufficient ownership of the property along that road, so there would not be any land taking. There's no land taking intended in this?
Okay. Mr. Roy?
No, there's a total of 60 permanent easements and 130 temporary easements that we require in order to go forward with the project.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Simon?
Brett Simus, Barber's Path. Just a question on this, and it was the same in the other one. What's the purpose of having the term "any other sum" included in these articles?
Okay, in the article, it says any other sum, but in the motion itself, it has the specific number. So basically, it's sort of a general question about the difference between an article and a motion. The article says any other sum because it may not be that particular number. It may be some different number. The motion itself gives you the specific number, and it gives you the specific funding source. But what you might notice in a lot of these articles that say, raise and appropriate from available unappropriated funds, transfer or borrow. So the article gives you a number of different places where you can get the money from. The motion, though, states specifically where we're getting the money from. So it's a good question, and that's sort of the general answer on the difference between an article and a motion. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Moderator, Article 18, I move the town vote to appropriate $600,000 to pay the costs associated with the engineering, design, project management, construction, and materials for repairs to the Fowler Street Bridge located at Davidson Road Outlet, including all incidental and related costs and as funding thereof. Therefore, to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow such sum pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, or any other enabling authority, and issue bonds or notes therefore, that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount, and further that the amount authorized to be borrowed hereunder shall be reduced by the amount of any grants or gifts received by the town prior to such borrowing for purposes of this article.
Second. Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Mr. Moderator?
Hang on. It's been moved and seconded. I want the FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom and capital budget.
Favorable action.
Favorable action by the capital budget. Is there a question?
Question. Ed McKinney, 49 Maple Avenue. Fowler Street Bridge was rebuilt in 1989. New decking, new steel, new head walls, all right? The engineer was done by Thomas Bernard Fry. And it wasn't done for it's the newest bridge we have in town, and I don't understand why we gotta spend $600,000 to replace it.
Okay.
The only thing it lacks is they never replaced the two narrow bridge signs on each end of the thing, and that's the highway's responsibility. They haven't done it
Okay. The answer to the question, Mr. Plummer.
The first clarification is we are not spending $600,000. I had the privilege of going to the State House.
That's how it's written.
Well,
Excuse
hang on,
me,
just-
please. I went to the
Let him
State
answer the
House
question.
with DPW Director, Mr. Roy, and the state awarded the town a $500,000 grant, which was to the compliment of Mr. Roy, Ms. Robinson, and Mr. Reed all worked on that, and that's a compliment to their efforts. So the other $100,000 is to offset additional costs that the grant won't require. I won't speak to the structure of the bridge, but it's my understanding that the bridge does not meet state code. I'll defer that to the DPW Director.
DPW Director, if you could address the reason why you believe the bridge has to be replaced, essentially.
We did have the bridge inspected by an engineer prior to applying for the grant. We looked at all the bridges, and the grant program was bridges that are less than 20 feet. So we had 3 bridges that actually qualified. We looked at the worst bridges in town. This was the worst bridge. I understand it was constructed in 1989, I believe by actually Public Works staff at that time. But if you look underneath the bridge, we have all kinds of flaws there. And we have an inspection report from the engineer as well as the state. As the state came and inspected the bridge, once we applied for the grant, all agreed that the bridge needed to be replaced. One of the things that we're going to be doing when we replace the bridge is widen the bridge. As you know, right now it's narrow, it's about 16 feet wide. Only one car can pass at a time, so what we're looking to do is improve that. So both the vehicle capacity and the length.
Thank you. Now, I know all of you who can hear fairly well are hearing some buzzing noise. Sounds like it just stopped, so, in the parking lot. So I think we're all set.
Thank you, Moderator. No, I just look at $600,000 on the newest bridge, and I just question the amount, that's all.
Okay, and so, just to Mr. Fleming, to your point, the motion is for 600,000.
Correct.
Just explain again, the state is going to kick in half a
The
million.
state has given us a $500,000, but there are other additional costs that we have to incur to repair the bridge. This is under the state small bridge program, bridges under 20 feet. As you know, we have another bridge in town that we are working on, and we applied, and unfortunately it was, what, 4 feet too big, too long? So unfortunately, but there were, of all the cities and towns in the Commonwealth, I believe there were only 20 awards given, so we feel quite privileged to receive that large amount of money for that.
So to be clear, when this is done, the cost for the town will only be $100,000.
Or less, that's a
$100,000.
contingency to cover any additional costs, yes.
Thank you. Any further, we've got capital budget, right, recommendation?
Yep.
Right, and we've got the FinCom. I just have a clarification. Town council, it says, General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 7 or 8. Why does it say that? Doesn't it know which one it is? I mean, I'm just wondering.
Mr. Moderator, we tend to be inclusive in terms of which sections that we cite for borrowing authority, because if bond counsel were to determine that any of the citations were not adequate, that language allows bond counsel to authorize the borrowing under any applicable law.
Okay, so it's like belt and suspenders?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, that's good to hear, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, this does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 19. Motion for Article 19? Mr. McCallum.
Article 19, I move that the town vote, raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to the Other Post-Employment Benefits Liability Trust Fund established under Article 42 of the 2011 Annual Town Meeting to meet the town's obligations under the Government Accounting Standards Board, Statement 45, to fund the town's future obligations for the cost of other post-employment benefits identified by the GASB 45 report.
Second? Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to set $20,000 as the maximum spending limit for fiscal year 2018 expenditures for the Senior Work-Off Program under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5K, which program allows senior citizens to work for the town in exchange for credit on annual property tax assessments and to adjust the maximum exemption allowed to $1,500 per participant.
Second, moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Well, it does say recommendation favorable on the sheet, so I figured I'd ask. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 21. And I got a motion for that? Mr. McCallum.
Article 21, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $430,000 to be used for the construction and/or improvement of town roads to supplement those provided for under the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Mass General Law, Chapter 90 program.
Second. Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Capital budget recommendation?
The capital budget had a tie vote.
Tie vote on this one. Okay, thank you. All right. So, favorable action by the FinCom, tie on capital budget. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. I guess those tie people weren't here, I don't know. So, Article 22.
I move that the town vote to amend the Journal Bylaws, Section 1 of Chapter 9, Capital Budget Committee by deleting the number 100,000 and inserting in place thereof the number 25,000.
Okay. Second? Second. FinCom, I don't know, FinCom, do you have a recommendation on this one? No. By what, Jim? Thank you. Do you have the pad? So, essentially, it's saying that capital budget recommendations are gonna go from 100,000 down to 25. So right now, if somebody wants to get 50,000, they don't talk to you. If this votes, 50,000 means they do talk to you. Okay, got it. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Okay. Motion does pass by a majority. Article 23. By the way, usually when there's no discussion, it's usually always unanimous, but not always, so that's okay. Go ahead.
Bill Taylor, 211 North Street. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $21,800 for use by the Board of Assessors to contract for, measure, and list services, and the sum of $11,000 for use by the Board of Assessors for future recertification.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. 24.
Mr. Moderator, that is your indulgence when I'm done reading this to explain it.
Sure,
Thank
please.
you. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $24,250 and transfer $10,750 from Article 30 of June 4th, 2015 annual town meeting to pay costs associated with the development. This is wrong. Yeah, this is. Excuse me, I'm reading it and I'm saying, whoa.
Okay.
I'll read it off this, please, Mr. Moderator. Okay, wow. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from available unappropriated funds in the town treasury or transfer or borrow the sum of $35,000 or any other sum to pay for costs associated with the development of cost estimates and schematic design for the renovation of the property located at 3 Milford Street for town uses, including all incidental and related costs. To take any other action relative thereto.
Okay.
That extra, yes.
Well, here's the thing. You just read the article, which I understand. Okay, so we need to still make it into a motion. Okay, so what I need to know is, where's the money coming from? From where? So it's going to be raise and appropriate? It's going to be two sources.
Thank you.
So,
This is,
why don't we do this? Let's just take a minute. If
Yes,
somebody could
please.
take the motion card and fix that.
this
Because that
motion has all-
was closer. So if somebody could work on that, please, and we'll spend a minute or so. It's
Thank
not
you.
too late yet.
May I explain it?
Yeah, why don't you explain it while that's happening?
There's been a lot of questions about this property, and it's the Board of Selectmen doing due diligence. We would not be prudent in our responsibilities if we did not bring this forward. The town has an opportunity to acquire this land. As you all know, the church started out, well, I don't know how old it is, but it's been through a number of uses. Most recently, it was Holy Angels Parish for the town of Upton for a number of years. This property became available to the town. When the Board of Selectmen were approached, we looked at it. We met with the Finance Committee. There are concerns about, well, are we going to spend $35,000 and then the property gets sold? That's a legitimate complaint. So what we did, we met with the landowner, and we have an agreement with the landowner that should this pass, the landowner will enter an agreement with the town to hold the property off the market and not sell it until a time approximately March of 2018. It would be our intent that we would have these studies and designs done to come back in October for the October town meeting to present before the body if they're interested in acquiring this land. Total transparency here, one of the conditions is the landowner has to carry costs of this property through this, so the Board of Selectmen voted tonight that we would expend from the William Knowlton Trust $5,000 to the landowner for his consideration of keeping it off the market. Now, we've already toured the building with a number of town departments. There's no permanent set use for this. We don't have, first of all, we have to get the structural aspect down and the schematic design work done, and then we would have a better idea. The library trustees have been through it. Council on Aging Senior Department, COA, has been through it. Recreation has expressed an interest. Personally, myself, I'd speak, make a hell of a cultural center, but that's my own opinion. But what I do say to you, and I have to forget how I feel about this. We once had a vote here before, and all we get is complaints about the use of that property. So if we let this go, we lose control of that building in the center of our town. And it has no restriction, it has limited restrictions on what it can be used for. So we're being totally transparent here. I'm not gonna go either way, whichever way it goes, it goes. But our due process is to bring it to the voters. There are 5,600 voters in this town, and you people are gonna make the decision. Compliments to you, by the way, for being here tonight. Thank you. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. So, assuming the motion card has been fixed, we'll take a look at that.
Okay, I'm told this is right, it's on the screen, Mr. Moderator. I will read it again. I move that this town raise and appropriate the sum of $24,250 and to transfer $10,750 from Article 30 of the June 4th, 2015 annual town meeting to pay for costs associated with the development of cost estimates and schematic designs for the renovation of the property located at 3 Milford Street for town uses, including all incidental and related costs.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Finance Committee recommendation.
Well, we were originally told it was $35,000, Mr. Moderator, for raise and appropriate. So, you want to give me a couple of seconds here?
Yeah, why don't you take a few minutes to talk about that, and then what I can do is just sort of clarify quickly. Basically, we're talking about spending $35,000 to do things to see if the church property is something the town would like to purchase. And the Board of, well, to do the study so that at some later point the town might purchase it. The Board of Selectmen, with the owners, has taken $5,000 from a special town fund, which will allow us to do trust fund to hold the property off the market for about a year, so that we can go through this process. So,
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
favorable action by the FinCom. So, any questions? Mr. Andrews.
Bill Andrews, 84 High Street, Upton. I'm also a member of the zoning CPA, and we actually approved the variance to allow this to be turned into, I believe, 3-unit condominium a while back. I didn't know why that plan didn't go forward, and I was just bailing out the developer when we found out it was going to be too expensive.
Okay, question?
In all candor, we're not bailing out the developer. We've had a number of conversations. As a matter of fact, there was a point when it probably didn't come to fruition to get to this town meeting, so.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Dan Lazarus, 10 Fire Road. Just got a quick question about the request for the money on the study side. Being somebody who works in the architecture and engineering world, typically you develop a program that establishes needs. Is the intent to spend the money to do 2 things? To develop program needs, go to those various departments to say, we're missing space, we need space, we have shortages. The other second question is this intended to do an existing building assessment to see what we're getting into? Namely because we have the Racine building across the street, which I believe is one of the buildings that is an old church, like Holy Angels, that is something that is been a liability to the town. So I just wanted to see if that clarification of the intent. Because the word schematic designs skips past those 2 things I just talked about.
The primary intent is to check the structural quality of the building. I walked through with a contractor, very reputable contractor, that said the building in appearance is structurally very sound, but we need to be assured of that. The schematic design goes into, if we were to use it for X, what's the logical approach with what we need it for? So hypothetically, if we were to use it for this process, would that building fit the need for that process? What are our options with it? We can't go forward and say to buy that building and, not have the due diligence done both structurally and schematically. So I can't go beyond that because, again, we haven't done the studies.
Okay.
So follow-up question. So the idea here is we're going to hire an architect engineer versus a developer. Somebody who works with these people every day.
We are hiring an engineer to study the building.
An architect engineer or just an engineer?
An engineer.
Thank you.
And as far as the Racine building, structurally, I can't go too far with this, but it's not a building we want to invest a lot of money in.
Hi, Shelley Cook, 43 Mendon Street, kind of going off what Mr. Lazar said also. Is the worth of the property, has someone determined the worth of that property as it's been on the market for so long as well? Is it worth the town spending an additional, so we've already put 5,000 in, an additional 35, almost 36,000, and that's without any changes at all?
The asking price would be in the range of $200,000 to acquire. But we can't get to that till the next town meeting phase.
Right.
Question.
Laura, I'm happy to Grove Street. My question is there any parking in this building? Last year, I believe we bought property at the end of 2 Grove Street for $80,000. We then demoed the building, we paved the parking lot, and that was for 14 spaces. Parking is at a premium. Does this building have any parking? I believe that was one of the issues we had with this.
Yes, there is the town municipal lot in front of the playground that has over 60 some odd parking spaces that are available to the town. We would have to construct some type of access. Presently, the sidewalk's there, but we would prefer to have another access into the back of the building that would be both disability access as well as for the general public.
Mr. Rackton?
Steve Rackton, 21 William Lane. My question is, as a member of the Library Feasibility Committee, we considered the church as a possible site for a library, and it was deemed to be unacceptable. And I don't know what's changed since that happened today, but it seems to me that the most important thing that's lacking is a structural engineering assessment of the building. And if the town is serious in considering buying the building, it would seem to me that would be a cost that the owner should bear, not the town. We've never, to my knowledge, ever spent money assessing a building that wasn't owned by the town before. I don't think we should do that in this case.
We approached the owner, and the owner feels that it is not the owner's obligation to do a engineering and schematic study of the building, whereas if we pass, the owner would find another use for it, whether sell it or use it for their own purpose. I can't speak to that, obviously, but the owner is not in a position, the landowner at this time, to expend that money for the town without the guarantee. The same way we're looking at it, the owner could expend $35,000. He could come to town meeting, and the town meeting could say, no, we don't want to buy it. So, for that reason as well.
Bill McCormick, Main Street. So you suggested a sale price that's someone agreed to verbally?
Well, I can't speak to that. I could say that's a ballpark number that was verbally discussed and verbally agreed to. But
So
no
as
commitment.
as we know, real estate contracts must be written, but if we spend this money, what's to say that the price could change to $350 or $400 when we've completed our study? Then the town would elect not to purchase and this money's lost.
We would bind the agreement so that the town is protected both for the time to allow us to do this as well as the agreed purchase price, should we go forward. And it would probably be the October, it would be at the October town meeting.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Fleming?
Before this article got on paper, there were a lot of discussions behind with the Board of Selectmen and the manager. Originally, it was, they were going to put a number on there and buy it. And after lots of discussion, and at the suggestion of the Finance Committee, look, you better have a plan, or this thing's going to sink before it even gets off the ground. That's the kind of the rationale behind requesting this money at this point. Just to see if there's something that the town should have in In theory, I agree with Mr. Fleming has said that it's a piece of property, it's in the center of your town. You probably should want to have control over it.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, just to follow up on my question, I asked if there was parking with the building. You explained there's a municipal parking lot, but if the building were sold to someone else, they would not have the right to go into the municipal parking lot. I asked specifically about 3 Milford Street. Is there parking with 3
No.
Milford other than the small driveway side?
No.
So whoever else bought that property would be extremely limited because they would have no parking for its uses. Am I correct?
No, that is not correct. The zoning board of appeals, I believe, authorized some use for that property where there would be parking. So, yes.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
One at a
It's not
time.
gonna be-
Well, folks, one at a time.
I
one at
just
a
had a
time.
question to
No,
clarify.
that's a fair question. I just want to make sure that one person's
I
talking
answered
at
it.
a time.
There is there is a condition for parking at the building through the ZBA, but there is no additional parking outside of that structure, no.
And just so I'm clear, the ZBA gave it for a very specific purpose.
Yes.
In other words, if it is turned into 3 condos, there is parking for 3 cars, am I correct?
I can't say how many cars. I know it's specific. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Just with James Maloney, 10 North Main. With the current plan, there was parking for 6 cars under the building. There is also the potential to take out the handicap ramp and put additional parking on the right side. You could also modify the church building and put an additional 6 parking behind it. So there is ample parking for other uses. It would require some modification to the building. I do understand there is some historical significance, but the modification would possibly remove the newer addition on the back of the building. There is a potential to do other things with the building. But I know that might upset the Historical Society and every other thing. But it is not, the owner has no parking and he has to dump it and sell it to the town.
Richard Robinson, 170 North. Mr. Moderator, do you know what the current owner paid for that property since it was a recent sale?
Mr. Moderator, I think that's out of order.
Yeah,
It's not our concern. I
Right,
wouldn't
I mean-
ask you what you paid for something if you were going to sell it to me.
I was going to use the analogy of, it's like when you want to buy a used car from somebody and they bought it from a dealer, you say, Steve, what'd you get it from the dealer for? Well, if you happen to know what that is, you happen to know it, but if whatever.
Mr. Moderator, Paul Carey, 6 Ephraim's Way, I'm a member of the planning board. We did look at this property, and the owner was before us. There was talk about 3 parking spaces inside. My understanding, though, was that required a fire suppression system that wasn't approved by Upton's fire safety officers. It required approval by the state fire marshal. I'm not sure if that approval was ever granted to allow 3 parking spaces inside the building. I'm not sure if the town can speak to that.
All I could say to it is if the town bought it, we wouldn't have any parking there in the building itself, so it has no relevance to us at all.
I guess I would,
Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, the question was relevance to an alternative buyer up in the town with a parking lot. That's all.
To my understanding, the zoning board of appeals approved 6 vehicles on the property, and there are requirements that I understand. I can't speak for the code enforcement, but I believe there are certain requirements that the building would have to they'd have to comply with to allow vehicles to be parked there. Fire suppression being one of them, insulation factors as well.
Okay, thank you. So, before we have the next speakers, I just want to make a quick comment about sort of the process, okay? Sometimes people wonder, what does town meeting do? Well, in a way, this is what a town meeting does. It looks at a piece of property, it talks about it, it debates about it, and it decides should you spend certain money to do something. So you're the ones here to make that decision. So I know I'm seeing some heads kind of like this. Well, that's what we're here for. Think about this, talk about it, and make the choices.
Donna DeChartin, 36 Brook Street. I think it's a question of what do we want to see in the center of town? We have spent quite a bit of money on this beautiful town hall that we have. It's, as Mr. Fleming and Mr. Flower said, it's a question of, do we want to control this? Do we want this to make this a permanent part of the picture of our town? Or do we just want to lose this? And the owner can work out other means for it, because it's not, there are other things that can be done with that building. I think, does the town want to make a decision? This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to really look at our town. How does it look, not only to us, but someone driving through? Is a church, that is a beautiful building. It has many possibilities.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer.
Mike Marchand, 21 Warren Street. To the previous speaker, it was stated that control of the center of town. There's other pieces of property in town that are for sale. We know what they are, or the town should know what they are. Is it the intent of the town that it is every time a piece of property comes up in town, in the center of town, we're going to buy it and remove it from the tax rolls?
Well, okay. One.
There was a study done by Central Mass Regional Planning to upgrade our downtown area, and part of that was for a retail and residential complex combination. We have not moved forward with that. We are still in the review stages. They're still doing more work. But, and again, I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for me. I would be interested in buying land in the center of our town. We have a very small common. I think it would be to our advantage to buy land, to upgrade it, to put in park benches, walkways, gazebos, whatever it is. That impact on the tax roll is going to be negligible compared to the benefit of the aesthetics of our downtown area by making those kind of investments. Property values go up when the center of the town looks better. When the center of town looks depressed, property values go down. That's common sense.
Just as a quick note, my recollection, this meeting occurred a few years ago, but one of the requirements was that the building, even if it was turned into condominium, would retain the original character of its current state.
All right. Any other discussion?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Previous speaker referred to taking property, town takes it over, it comes off the tax roll. Well, I don't want to disillusion you, but whatever taxes are paid were on a piece of property that the town owned, that dollar was part of the levy limit. And just because the town takes it over, it doesn't reduce the levy limit. The tax on any property that the town takes over, for example, if the town takes over a tax bill, that's a property, the tax bill is $5,000. The town, contrary to what you may think, does not lose the $5,000. Everybody else that pays the tax bill kicks in a few pennies here, a few pennies there, and the town gets their $5,000. So don't be disillusioned. When the town takes over a property, we don't lose the tax dollar.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Made that clear. Yes, Chief.
Mr. Moderator, Ron Goodale, Thayer Street. I'll be honest with you folks, coming into this tonight, I wasn't sure what my thoughts were 100% on what we're doing with this article and what we should do with the church. But from my perspective, the way that I see it is, we're not taking this building off the tax rolls tonight. We're not making a 100% determination on what we're doing with it. Like a large corporation, we're taking a look at a piece of property to try to make a decision, help us make a decision on whether or not it's worth moving forward in doing something with this building or not. And at the end of the day, I guess at a cost of $35,000 or so, it's a lot of money, but it buys us some time to make an intelligent decision about what to do with this building moving forward. It is an important location. There's a lot that could go on in that area downtown. And so I guess I look at it from the standpoint of spending $35,000 to allow us to sort of catch our breath and figure out what we're going to do with it. It doesn't mean we're going to buy it. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to do anything with it. But we won't know that until we spend this money. So after hearing everybody tonight, I think I'm of the opinion that we should do this because it gives us an opportunity to make an intelligent choice.
Okay, good. Maybe one or two more, but it seems like we're wrapping up. Go.
I think it's worth looking at the building as for other town uses. I just don't agree that the town should pay for the structural engineering study.
if the property owner wants to sell the building to the town, I think it's their responsibility to do that. And if they don't want to do that, then they lose the opportunity to sell the building to the town. But I just can't understand why the town would want to spend $35,000 for a building that we don't own.
Okay?
Sure, James Maloney. I'm the property owner. I was approached by the town. I did not go to the town to sell the building. I have been approached for other uses. A lot of them probably wouldn't be favorable for the town, without going into too much detail. Again, we mentioned the railroad yard. But I have other things I can do with the building. If this doesn't go this way, I will start doing something with it tomorrow. And different kinds of uses will be permitted, and I have to do what's best for me. I'm actually losing money at the price we have offered it to the town for, hoping to give the town the opportunity to do something really neat with the building and really neat with our downtown. I implore you to do this because it gives them the opportunity, and I've already done structural engineering work there, and based on that, they already have a good start to do a very thorough evaluation of the building. If this doesn't happen, I will do something else with the building. I'm not, in a bad situation or anything like that. I'm not being bailed out. This is to do something, and as far as the parking, if I did put parking underneath it, if I put 2 units in it, the building does not need to be sprinkled, and which would be a big savings, so that's one of our potential uses. But I do like the idea of selling it to the town, because the town owns the piece next to it, and they could do something very nice along the stream and actually make that land usable for the town, versus it being what it is now.
Thank you. Chief.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to add one other thing. It has been alluded to a couple of times about a large parcel of land that the town had an opportunity to buy 6 or 7 or 8 years ago and passed on. And to be honest with you, that decision created a lot of angst for the town. And again, I would say I have no skin in the game on this whatsoever, but I do think it's worth considering what happened in the past, and looking at this expense is again being a chance to make an intelligent choice with more information at a future date. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. I think we're all set to vote on this. You've heard positive, negative. You have a sense for what you've heard. You've had a chance to think about it. So now's the time to vote. I know tonight when I've asked for a lot of yeas and nays, I'm not hearing a whole lot. But, let me know how you feel about this, both ways, so that I can get a good sense of how the vote's going to go. And remember, if you're not a registered voter, you can't vote. So just remember that. There's about a dozen of you out there who can't say a word. You know who you are. Good. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. I can't make the call on the voice, so we'll have a standing count. Okay, so I need some of the folks who have helped me in the past with counting. Okay. Let's get these. Get those. Lorraine. Good, thank you. We have 4 people. I think we'll have enough. We'll
Ida, Denise. Can you get Ida too? Oh, okay. That's all right, I'll do it.
So, Kelly, is there a non-voting section here?
Oh, yeah, the non-voters are in that section, but I think there's a couple that are not. I got Michelle Valancourt, and are there any registered voters in that section right over there? You want to move over here?
Move to a section where we can count you if you are a registered voter. Thank you.
If you're a non-registered voter, stay in the handicapped area.
Okay. Denise Kelly? Denise and Kelly. The two of you will do the center sections, FinCom and the state. You guys will do the two on the side. Well, both of them together. You both do both sides together, okay? So I'd like to ask you all to please be quiet. Everyone must be sitting in a seat if you're going to vote. If you're not in a seat, you're not going to be voting, okay? I just made that really clear to the counters. So make sure everybody's in a seat. Okay? So, good. All those in favor, please stand. So, everybody sit down. Those who are opposed, please rise. Okay, everybody please sit down. The vote is yes, 89, no, 43. The vote passes by a majority. All right. Next motion is 25. Motion for 25, please. Mr. Roberts.
John Robertson, Board of Trustees. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,450 for the purchase of furniture and equipment for the town library.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Pat, please. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. 26.
Mr. Moderator, Paul Carey, 6 Edmonds Way. I move to approve Article 26 as printed in the warrant.
Okay. Second. Moved and seconded, printed in the warrant. Have the card, please. Requires a 2/3 majority vote. So essentially, it is adding the bolded section, the planning board may grant a waiver, et cetera, et cetera. Everything else is just as the, is currently in the bylaw. This requires a 2/3 majority vote. There was a second, so any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr.
Paul
Carey,
Carey,
please.
I'm a member of the planning board as well. This came out of a previous citizen's petition.
Yep.
And the board, the planning board flexibility to increase the height to up to 200 feet. And that's the reason we have it.
So it's basically moving from 150 to 200.
150 is the limit. The planning board grants a waiver to allow a maximum of 200 that we find that it's in the best interest of the town.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Planning board, favorable recommendation, I assume?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Planning board, favorable recommendation, yes.
Dr. Don Taylor, 2 Sadler Road. I would like to make a motion to amend Article 26, paragraph 6.2.6, item 2. Item 2 read as follows: height, the maximum allowable height of the tower shall be 200 feet.
So, what you want to do is take everything out and just say maximum height 200.
That is correct.
That's your amendment, okay, to get rid of all language, okay? Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Hang on a second. It's been moved and seconded to take section 2 and just make it maximum height 200 feet.
Yes.
Town council, thank you, that's a question, that's a comment.
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, since the only thing that's being added is everything after that, essentially, Dr. Taylor's motion is to take no action. Or
Well, it's a little bit different than that. It's basically just saying, make it 200 feet,
That is correct.
which right now it's
Oh, I
still...
see, from 100 to 50. I'm sorry.
Right, yeah. He's talking about taking everything out and making it 200. So that's the amendment. So all I want to talk about now is just the amendment. Okay? You feel like it's a good amendment or not, whatever. That's what we're going to talk about. Dr. Taylor? Yes. Thank you very much. Could somebody get that for me, please? Thank you. Yep. So, Dr. Taylor.
Basically, why is this article on the warrant? Our town needs a new cell phone tower to provide service.
Dr. Taylor, hang on a second.
Yes.
It's just the amendment. Why you want it to be 200?
This is
It's
what
not
I'm
about the
talking
whole thing.
Nope, this is what I'm talking about.
Well, so you want it to be 200 as opposed to what's there now?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
Our town needs a new cell phone tower to provide service to those families that only have a landline. These families have added monthly expenses for this landline. They do not have access to emergency alerts that come over the cell phone, and any potential home sale could be negatively impacted when lack of cell phone service is noted. Since our present cell phone tower was erected in September of 2012, you might ask why this lack of coverage was not addressed initially. Industrial Towers of Marshfield erected our cell phone tower. They informed the planning board as far back as 2009 that the industry standard for towers was 200 feet and that anything less would compromise coverage. The planning board opted for a 140-foot tower. I was also told by the chief engineer at Industrial Towers that they would be, quote, disinclined, end quote, to site a new tower unless the industry standard regarding height was in place. I rest my case. Thank you.
So, with regard to the amendment of taking all the other language out and making it just 200, Mr. Carey, do you want to comment on that?
Mr. Moderator, the planning board did hold a public hearing on the last request regarding an increase in height.
Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
The planning board did hold a public hearing the last time that the issue of height was brought up, just prior to the last town meeting. And although we heard similar arguments, there was not evidence brought to the board that specific areas or specific problems would be resolved with a 200-foot cell tower limit. So the planning board decided to keep the existing limit at 150, but to give us the ability to increase if it was demonstrated that it was in the best interest of the town. So I would oppose to the motion to amend the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion just on the amendment? Mr. Davis.
John Davis, 99 Walnut Powell Street. One of the things that the planning board does is have a public hearing on every one of these applications. And we thought it was best if the neighbors, the abutters to the project, had a voice in this and not just told them it's going to be 200 feet regardless. We'd like it to be the height that's necessary to cover all of the houses. If that's 180 feet, we don't need to put an extra 20 feet in that neighborhood. So we'd like to review each case as it comes up, get the neighbors involved, and let that height be determined per case, and not just decrease it to 200. It's a shotgun style.
Okay. Dr. Taylor?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. We in this town had an opportunity back in 1999 to acquire a cell phone tower that was 312 feet tall, 97.3 meters, as I recall. This tower was available, and the people at Industrial Tower wanted to purchase this. It was already all set to go, and you don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that the taller the tower, the greater the radius and the people that you're going to reach. The planning board rewrote the zoning bylaws so that tower could not be used, and people at Industrial Tower were absolutely upset. It took 10 years from 2002 to 2012 when our tower was installed and ready to go in September of 2012. That tower, because we had a 140-foot tower, excluded a substantial number of residents in our town. I read you before what I said, that these people now have no access to the alerts that go on with cell phones. We just recently had a blizzard. I don't know how many people have cell phones, but mine went off 3 or 4 times. The alerts, people who had landlines had no access to that. The industry standard is 200. If we want to increase the cell phone coverage in this town, we need a new tower, and Industrial will not look at us again unless we have on the books a tower height of 200, which is industry standards. They don't want to put on small towers.
Thank you. So, again, the amendment is make it 200 and get rid of all the other language. The 150 now, make it 200 if the planning board approves. So that's what we're voting on right now, just the amendment to make it 200 across the board. Is that clear? Everyone clear on that? Okay. Are all those who are in favor of making the amendment to just make it 200 feet across the board, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The amendment is lost. So now we're back to the motion itself, which is to change the 150 to 200 with the planning board making the waiver, et cetera, as you have that language. Any more discussion on just the motion itself? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, and again, it requires a 2/3 majority vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
The motion carried by a 2/3 majority. Article 27. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Ron Goodale, Thayer Street, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 to purchase and equip a tanker truck for the fire department.
Okay, second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action. Capital budget recommendation?
Favorable action.
Favorable action. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Mike Moran, 102 High Street. Are we replacing the truck? And if we are, what's wrong with the truck we're replacing? And if we're replacing the truck with another truck, do we own it, or does Steven give it to us?
Okay, Chief, did you get all that?
Three parts.
I think I got it all.
Okay.
So this truck, the intent of this truck is to replace our Tanker One, which was taken out of service in the last couple of weeks as a result of a consultant's report that we had obtained in the fall on the truck. We've had much discussion about how to proceed moving forward, and a lot of work was done by many members of committees in the past couple of weeks to get this across the finish line. But this would be a replacement of our existing Tanker One, which is our 5,000-gallon Oshkosh. It was a surplus military truck. The intent is we're going to buy a used fire truck, used fire tanker to replace that truck.
Okay, and will we own it? Is that what was the other question?
We will own it, yes.
No. Do we own the truck that he's going to retire?
Oh.
Do FEMA own it? The one we got now, do we get it from FEMA?
Yes, it's a federal surplus vehicle, yes.
Okay.
So that means that has to go back into surplus for somebody else to take over, right?
Well, Chief?
It potentially would go back as a surplus vehicle, yes.
Okay, somebody else to maybe use, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
It doesn't belong to us, we don't have a title for it. We've used it for 14 years at no cost from the original purchase or original acquisition. So it will go back to the federal surplus program.
Okay. Sir?
In the first part, I asked, what's wrong with the truck? Why are we replacing it?
Okay. Why are we replacing this truck?
Consultant recommended that we take the truck off the road and not do any work to repair it. It's a 1977 truck. It's over with, being not street legal. It has leaking pinion seals front to rear, leaking front rear mains. It needs 10 tires. Our estimated cost needs a new tank. Estimated costs are somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 to fix it.
Okay. Sir?
All right, my understanding, this truck was repowered in the 80s, all repowered. You know, seals and stuff can be fixed, and tires, but this truck I spent buying a used truck, $120,000. As a business owner, it's not good expense.
Okay. Fair enough. Chief?
I'm not aware of the truck being repowered in the 80s. We received the truck from the federal surplus program in 2004.
Okay. There's another person that might have a comment. Let's get a third voice.
James Maloney, 10 North Main Street. I'm a firefighter in Watertown, Massachusetts. Always spending money to improve your fire department is a good thing. You don't want your firefighters trying to go to a fire in a 1977 truck that needs $40,000 worth of repairs. This is a very good expenditure. Helps your firefighters so they can respond quickly and not have to go, gee, I hope the truck starts today. I strongly recommend that we fund this, and I would actually even consider why don't we just buy a new truck versus a used truck. So it's probably good that the town is being frugal, but any expenditures, especially with this department that has a lot of paid call guys, your labor cost is cheap. So you should be willing to invest in good equipment so your paid call guys come back versus quitting because you're sick of dealing with junky equipment.
Sir?
Like I say, go back to, it's a used truck you're buying. Anybody's bought a used car, they always have problems, same with the trucks. In a business sense, you want to buy something that's going to last you 25 years. I think we're going backwards. Like the gentleman said, it has to be a new truck, it has to be a new truck, but we're going backwards, we're going forward.
I hear it, Chief. I don't want to say anything else.
I will just add to that we purchased a used tower 3 years ago as a result of a vote at town meeting. Times are different today. Back in 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have the access to used equipment that we have today. The town's making considerable investment in its staffing for the fire and EMS department right now, and we're very happy about that. We're able to make some concessions here and improve what we have today by making this purchase. It may not be perfect, but it's going to get the job done, and that's what we need right now. So I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flaherty.
The fire department has a huge capital plan to replace equipment as it's all going forward. As part of the,
Mr. Flaherty, go ahead.
what I want you to do is, if I'd like you to do, Chief, is to elaborate on how acquiring this reduces an expenditure, a possible expenditure as part of the capital plan going forward.
What Mr. Flaherty's telling you, Mr. Moderator, is he's putting me on the spot.
Well, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but just briefly.
We, I like to say, we're unfortunately we're kind of needy in the sense that it's expensive. Fire department equipment is expensive. When you see a firefighter walking down the street, they're likely to have $10,000 a piece in equipment just to protect them from the job that we do. So when you see an engine company with 4 people pull up and get off the truck, they're walking down the street with $40,000 in equipment. We realize we're not cheap, but we try to keep our people as safe as we possibly can, and we try to make the wisest decisions that we can. We have an overall discussion within the department about we have more than one piece of apparatus that's surplus equipment or getting old. We went forward this year with a request for a rescue pumper, which is somewhat different than this vehicle, but at the same time, we had our tanker going potentially out of service, and we really thought we needed to address that first. Again, it goes back to some hard work that was done by committees, including Capital, Finance, the Board of Selectmen, to get us here with this article. What I would say from an emergency standpoint, to get the piece of equipment that we need for now to get us in a position where we're better equipped and we're able to go out and respond and do what we need to do. The life of this truck is about 10 years from what we've discussed. That would be the goal for this purchase. We generally like to buy fire trucks with a 20 to 25-year life. The request that we made earlier to buy a rescue pumper, a new rescue pumper, that was a $550,000 request. We have the potential to be able to reduce that request, at least for now, by making this purchase, and then coming back later on, probably next year, to address an issue with our rescue truck, which is aging. So there is a good potential for us to continue a discussion about reducing that $550,000 request and lessening that number at some point in the future. So that was part of the discussion that I think Mr. Flaherty is referring to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're all set with the discussion on here. So basically, the motion is $120,000 for a tanker truck for the fire department. It's used, but it's new to us. It's used truck. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by a majority. Article 28. Mr. Durham.
That's one. I move the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $123,000 to fund the snow and ice deficit for 2007.
Second? Been moved and seconded to transfer from free cash $123,000 for snow and ice removal. Finance Committee recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Now, I will take a second to explain something here. A lot of you see the number on here, $117,000, right? Which is what the article says. Now, there are some of you here go way back and say, wait a minute. If the article says 117, the motion cannot be a number above that. Well, that's really not true. What it boils down to is, what I have to do is look at this motion and say to myself, if it has to be more than what's in the article, is it a reasonable amount of money based on the fact, have the townspeople been warned? The townspeople were warned that we were going to spend $117,000 for snow removal. I guess for whatever reason, other numbers came in which said, well, no, it's actually $123,000. So My determination as moderator is that the townspeople have been sufficiently warned that we were going to spend this amount of money on snow removal. The fact that it's a 5% higher number is not such an extravagant amount more that says that people haven't been sufficiently warned. For example, if they came up with $200,000, I'd say, no. The townspeople were not thinking 200,000, they were thinking 117. The fact that it's 123 versus 117, that to me is a reasonably small enough above what was being asked for. I wanted to explain that because I know there are some people out there thinking you can't have a motion more than what's in the article. That's not true. It's a question of being sufficiently warned. My determination is people have been warned. So, I don't know if anybody wants to explain why it's a little bit above or not, or just it is what it is.
Simple, what it is, everything's put to bed, and then you find that there's a collateral cost.
Yep, okay, thank you. Good. Anything else on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by a majority. And we've done 29 already. Mr. Robinson.
I move that we dissolve the warrant and adjourn the meeting.
Second. Moved and seconded to dissolve the warrant and adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Good night, folks. Thank you.